What is going on? Welcome to this week's episode of Conquer the Day. I am your host, Lindsey Pickowicz.
And I am your co-host, Brian Pickowicz.
Today we are talking about pivotal points in our lives. We want to share the raw, honest look at these pivotal points, these pivotal stories where we kind of hit rock bottom in our own sense. This idea for this podcast came up because of a question that my brother actually asked me, believe it or not. We were taking a drive to get a present for my little brother, whose birthday was yesterday. And I said, Aaron, what do you want to know about me? What would you like to learn about me now that I'm closer to home and we're in the same place? And he thought about it for a second, and his first question was, ooh, I got a good one. What was the point where you decided to change your life? And I had to really think about it for a second. I was like,
Which change?
Which change? What do you mean? And he's like, I don't know. What is the point where you decided to change? And so that inspired a great conversation. And as you and I talked about it, it inspired a great conversation between you and I as well. And so that's why I wanted to share, because I wanted to just share those stories. I know they're really inspiring and helpful just to see where other people have made changes, at least for me, when I hear it from people that I care about.
Yeah, and I think at some capacity there's a idea that people have always been the way they are. Like if someone's in shape,
So true.
they've always been in shape. And I was even thinking about that for myself because my fitness journey started with, a multitude of different things. But really when it became like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to become fit. I'm going to compete in bodybuilding. I lost 60 pounds in 8 months, 9 months time. So there's experience that we have where we're observing someone as they currently are without realizing that there's a lot of things that got them to that point. And that can be positive or negative. And my intention, too, when Lindsey brought this up to me was not only to share some pivotal points that really helped me grow, but it's also coming into the new year, right? We're coming into the end of 2023. We're going into the new year, 2024. And my guess is that as you're listening to this, you could probably think of some pivotal points in your life that things were no longer going to stay the same. You were going to make a change, things were going to get better, or you realized if things didn't get better, they were going to continue to get worse. And I know that for myself, I'm often motivated in that way. When I realize that this is the threshold of pain I can tolerate, I decide to make a change. And so as you're going into the new year, you can treat this as a pivotal point. Right, you're spending your time and giving us your attention. How can you start to reflect on some pivotal points in your life and also connect some dots? What are the things that big decisions have in common? What are some pivotal moments that kind of mirror each other? And if we can reflect on the changes that we've made in the past, we can use those same principles to change right now. Because change doesn't happen. Change is not the result of a litany of decisions. Over time it is, but realistically change happens in a moment.
Well, I would say change of your path can change in a moment.
Yeah,
change of yourself tends to take time and reinforcement, but you can change your trajectory of your life with one decision.
And realistically, there's one decision, there's one moment that causes a ripple effect.
Right.
I decide to go to the gym for the first day. That first time I ever went to the gym in college, I was full of anxiety. I wasn't fitting in anywhere. I decided that I wasn't good enough to play college football. I was sitting alone in my dorm, and I say, I've just got to do something productive because this is not going to work out well. So I go to the gym. I show up. I have an embarrassing experience where I drop the weights on my chest, but hey, I worked out, right? And my brain registered, just do it again. So again, that single decision to go to the gym, if I didn't go to the gym that day, or if I didn't decide to, let's say, leave the dorm, then things would look different. And it's a multitude of that. Deciding to propose to you and you deciding to say yes. Deciding to start our first business. Deciding to build a business together. Every single decision is what's really changing us. But there's certain pivotal moments where it's like, I cannot tolerate this anymore. Yeah. Things have to change. And when you reach that point and you truly make a decision to change, that is where your life starts to move in the direction where you really want it to go.
Very true. I think that when you're first, I would say not when you're first looking back, but if you're looking back at your life, because everybody's had pivotal points of change, when you have those first memories of pivotal changes, I think they're almost, I won't say almost always, but I would imagine that they're often from a place of pain. And then as you mature and you change, you start to make pivotal decisions before the point of pain in search for something better. And at least that would be my reflection, because my answer to my brother's question was, well, actually, it was my 20th birthday. In past answering of this question, I usually lean into when I decided to get in shape or when I decided to date you, or just different points in life that actually came after my 20th birthday. But on my 20th birthday was actually the first time that I made a conscious, intentional decision to change my life. It was, again, my 20th birthday. I was in college, and I was, at this point, I was really struggling to fit in and trying to get myself to the point where I had friends and I was getting good grades and I was trying to do all of the, quote, right things. And on my birthday, I found myself in someone else's dorm room where there was a party happening. And I had told myself going into it, okay, well, maybe my friends are throwing me a party. Maybe they're throwing me the birthday party. And that was what I had convinced myself was happening. So I bought myself a bottle of Ciroc, peach flavored. I went to this party, and I realized pretty much halfway through the party and fully through the bottle of Ciroc that this party was not for me. I didn't really know who, and nobody knew who I was, even though I knew who everybody else was. Nobody knew it was my birthday, except for my best friend telling everybody it was my birthday. And
what a good friend.
Yeah.
I mean it in all seriousness.
Yeah, that's true. And I just felt like, oh, I have no friends. I'm drunk. I'm overweight. I'm uncomfortable and self-conscious. And that was where I landed myself. And the real turning point was when I was placed in a chair and given a beer shower. So I'm drunk, I'm overweight, I'm self-conscious, I have no friends, and I've received now a beer shower. I'm covered in beer. And somebody took a picture of me in that moment. I'm like laughing, but it was like the most painful rock bottom feeling. And I remember just thinking to myself, wow, this is not how I want to live my life. This is not who I want to be. I can't do this anymore. And I didn't make any decisions about what I was going to do, but I did decide, okay, I'm not going to be a drinker anymore. Like, I'm not going to be a partier anymore. I'm not going to care about people who don't care about me. I'm not going to pretend that I need to be somebody else to get friends, is really what I'm saying there. And I didn't necessarily create a new path or go make some massive decision after that or commitment. But I remember that moment so vividly, because it was like, oh, this is not who I choose to be. So that was my pivotal point of change, was that like beer shower, final moment of sadness where I was like, okay, I need to be different. We're done with this.
What was the action that followed that?
It really wasn't anything specific that I can remember. It was just go home, wash up, and don't do that again. And after that, we decided after talking that was April 2015.
Mm-hmm.
You and I connected in May 2015, and then we started dating in June of 2015. I went to your show in July of 2015. So it was little pivotal decisions came after that point, where I decided I'm better than this. And after I went to your show, then I decided I wanted to start doing competitions, or I wanted to start getting in shape. Made a decision to get in shape in August of 2015. Took a photo, made a commitment out loud to you and to myself, and then slowly started chipping away at just the physical side of my progress, my fitness journey. And at that point, everything started to change from there. So it's like, even though nothing changed in that moment other than my own mindset, the way I saw the world and what I thought was possible for me completely shifted from that point forward.
Well, it sounds like you also made the decision that you could not keep doing things the way that they were going.
Yes. And I think that alone, that stop or that halt of all of the wrong decisions is progress in and of itself. Like
Yeah.
awareness of, hey, awareness is progress. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do instead, but I'm not going to do this.
Well, and even and I'll share too in a moment, but it's like if you look back and you were to really reflect, there was probably a series of events. Like I know you had told me that one time you were going to a party and someone called you fat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like that.
Yep, that's true.
That triggered that insecurity. That it's already kind of got you moving in that direction.
Yeah, and the February before that birthday, I had gone on a girls' trip for spring break, and it was my first spring break. And again, I was drunk the whole time. I was wearing a bikini and felt terrible. I was hiding in it. Guys tried to take advantage of me. Like there was a bunch of things that were happening before that were like, ugh, this doesn't feel good. I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. But I didn't determine that I was going to change until that moment. But you're right. There were a lot of things that led up to that.
That's
that
great.
Then changed it. Yeah. So that was my pivotal point.
And what do you think that taught you?
What part?
Just the decision to make that change. How did that impact the other decisions you made after that? What was the lesson, or what was the thing that you really gained from that experience of showering off, realizing the next day, like, things are going to get better, things have to get better? How did that impact the other decisions you made?
I would say it made me more readily able to jump on new opportunities. So I think it just opened, without realizing it, I think it opened my eyes to saying yes to things that were good for me.
Especially the most handsome man in the world.
Especially the most handsome man in the world. Yeah, because if you think about it, if I was still in that shut down place where I was like on this tunnel vision path to make friends with people and become the partier and be the most fun person in the room or whatever I defined myself as at that point, then I probably would have stayed stubborn and closed off rather than at least opening myself up to healthier things or better things for me.
And when we started first talking, a lot of it revolved around the fact that you were working out. Like, so you had already kind of started to move in that direction as well.
That's true.
You were at the gym. I was like, hey, I don't know how to train women. I have my first female client, and I don't know, like, what cues, like, they feel comfortable with. Can you give me some help? And that was the first time we really started talking. And
That's
so
true.
It's like, if you weren't even in the state where you were starting to take productive action,
very true,
who knows where we would have been. So
very true.
Again, the culmination of a lot of different experiences and then one decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like there's all these experiences and there's subtle changes that are happening unconsciously or consciously. And then there's one moment, one point where you say, I can't allow this to persist.
Yeah, and I think that we shuffle around that decision a lot. I mean, I even experienced it more recently, which I won't go into right now, but you kind of tiptoe around a decision that you're kind of thinking about and marinating on for a long time, maybe finding reasons why you shouldn't do it right now or why it's not really reasonable to focus on it or what have you. But no matter what, things change after decisions. Things don't just change on their own without you putting any intention behind it, at least towards something better or something different than you have.
And decision means to cut off.
Yeah,
right? To
true.
make a decision means you cut off any other possibility. You decide.
Yep.
And that's the actual root of the word. So that's why it's so important to look at those pivotal moments, look at the decisions that followed, and really, when you're feeling the emotion, not just, oh, I should make a decision, that's not compelling.
Yeah.
You have to get yourself in a state where there's either enough pain you're experiencing that you say, I have to change, or there's enough pleasure on the other side of a change. Now, we're more motivated to avoid pain than we are to gain pleasure. So that's why a lot of times when you think of experiences where things changed, it's usually painful. It has to be painful because there has to be enough motivation to not keep experiencing what we're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. There was an idea that you just sparked for me, and now I can't remember it. But if it comes back, I'll share. I think the curious question I would have for you is what decisions led up to your big decision, and then what was the big decision for you?
Yeah, there was a few different pieces, but really I think the biggest changes that I had came my first 6 to 12 months in college. And there was, and at least from a getting healthy, making fitness a focus in my life, there were some other decisions that led to me launching my first business. There were decisions that led me to focusing on health. There's decisions that led me to stop bodybuilding altogether. Like there's a lot of
That's
decisions
true.
that have been pivotal points where as I reflect on my own behavior, it's like I am always like what gets me to change is massive pain. And that's sometimes psychological pain, like realizing like I cannot stay this way, and if I do, I will
Mm-hmm.
feel like I am dying.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've just learned how to associate pain more acutely. So if something small is happening, I focus on it, I focus on it, I focus on it to get myself to change the behavior. It's very helpful. It's very helpful, and I'm able to concentrate and really
Mm.
associate
That's a
enough
good
pain
one.
with not changing, even if it's something as simple as how I talk to you, or
Yeah.
something as simple as, well, I really am not good at this one thing, and I need to do it, but I'm not very good at it. It's like pain. Like,
Yeah.
how much is this decision costing you? Yeah, there was a tax form I had to get to our accountant, and I had to associate how much it was going to cost me in taxes because
If you didn't do it.
it was such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It cost a bunch of time, energy. I had to sit down and read a bunch of the information which I wasn't educated on, and so in order to get myself to do it, I said this is going to cost me $8,000.
Mm.
Pain. Like, do I want to have $8,000 or do I not want to have $8,000? Or what is the long tail of that? And that might even be more helpful. But in the moment, it's like, this is an $8,000 task.
Mm.
And that was painful enough to say, okay, sit your ass down and get it done. It's not going to be fun, but it's certainly going to be better on the other side.
That's a very good
So,
point.
so those are like the mental tools that I use currently to get myself to change behaviors. But the
Mm.
first thing that I can really think of was there was a build up similar to what you had. I'd gone to college. I had an opportunity to walk onto the football team. I had had an intestinal hernia, but it really wasn't anything that needed to be taken care of. And I was so anxious about school and my current ability that I decided that it really wasn't important to play football. I told myself I need to get this surgery, which I really didn't need. I talked to myself. I talked myself into it,
Mm.
and it was unconsciously because I was nervous and fearful that I wouldn't be good enough. So I go into college. That whole experience, and I'm not playing sports. I've been an athlete my whole life. 3-sport athlete, all-state, player of the year. Like, it was an identity,
Mm-hmm.
and now there wasn't an identity that I had. So I had unconsciously made it so I didn't take action. But I remember thinking the people that I grew up with a lot of times would go to college. They could have been really great athletes, but that was the same pattern. We grew up in a small town. You go to a bigger school. Oh, I'm not going to be the star. I'm not going to do it. So I had started to, when I went to college, I decided, okay, I need to start working out, I needed to get bigger. Unconsciously, it was because I had a desire to play football. I just didn't claim it yet. Like, I was like, okay, I need to get bigger, which was true. I need to get stronger. I need to become a better athlete so I can compete. But I never really claimed that. I never really claimed it. And then I started going back home from my college, and I was partying with all the same people that were people who went to college, didn't play sports, ended up dropping out because they didn't have the mindset, mental fortitude, whatever their actual challenges are for them. But that's the way at least I saw it. And there was a couple moments where, like, we went to this one party, we're hanging out with a couple friends, and then all of a sudden 2 of them got drunk and started, like, verbally assaulting my brother and I, and mostly him. And there was some dynamics there that made that happen, but I just remember thinking, like, do I really want to hang out with these people anymore?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to get really into bodybuilding, started to get really into fitness, and this is where the unconscious desire to play college football started to get more and more enticing. I started getting cardio training. I started running on the track, but I just hadn't taken a decisive action yet.
Mm.
I kind of just put it off. I was like, this is kind of something I want, but I didn't really claim it. And so it gets all the way to, I think, April of my freshman year, so my second semester, and we had gone to this party for one of my friends. He was turning 21 or whatever, and we were throwing a big kegger. So I had spent most of my high school years drinking, so I had plenty of experience in the party scene, drugs, all that stuff. But this one was a big party. All of our friends were there. And at this time, I had put on probably like 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. So I was feeling really good about myself, and I was, starting to, learned some things in college, right? I was at a school where I had to study. I studied politics, and I got to meet governors and people running for president. So I started to kind of have this energy, like, oh, there's so many things I can do. There's so many things I can create, and that's not where the other people I was partying were at. A lot of them were doing drugs. They were alcoholics. They were drug dealers. So there was this different way of viewing the world. Needless to say, I show up at this party, and one of my best friends is talking to this one guy, and he essentially, the guy who we're kind of friends with, but not as close, starts yelling at my friend and saying, "You guys just think you're better than us. You just think you're..." And I was like, "Hey, I'm not trying to fight. Not looking for any kind of problems. Like, we're all friends here." And so they kind of have this tiff, and then the kid who wasn't my friend, or was more of an acquaintance, goes over to these other group of friends that I've been friends with my whole life. And he starts, getting them all heated, and they start getting riled up. And I walk over and say, "Hey guys, like, trying to be a peacekeeper. Like, no one's looking for a fight. No one's looking for a problem. Like, let's all relax." And they start kind of yelling at me, like, "Oh, you just think you're better than us. You just think you're better than us." I said, "Guys, this has nothing to do with me being better than you." And I don't know if they took that as me unconsciously saying I was better than them, but all of a sudden I just start getting these 5 guys who are just yelling at me, screaming at me, and they're all in front of me, like literally in my face yelling at me. And I was like, "Hey, you guys got to relax. You got to take it down a notch." And then one of them spit in my face. And that was a moment for me where my mood started changing just a little bit. And I kind of put my hands on him and I said, "You really need to back off." Mm-hmm. And it just kept building and building and building. And the actual exciting moment for me was I was pretty inebriated, and my girlfriend at the time walks in front of me and says, "Brian, you gotta stop. And there was just a pivot point where I made a decision that I wasn't going to back down anymore, because I'd always been someone who'd been bullied. Mm-hmm. I'd been the kind of the pushover and never really stuck up for myself. And I just had this moment where something clicked, and I said, "I am going to beat the hell out of all of you." And I started just kind of getting myself in that state, which I'm not advocating for. And I just remember, I think it was the result of me having so much confidence, I kind of ripped off my shirt and just started like kind of yelling. And all of a sudden, everyone's state in the room changed, because I had put on muscle. It was a clear, obvious depiction of this is a different person now. Needless to say, they ended up attacking me. There's 5 guys on top of me, hitting me, throwing fists and stuff like that. And it, obviously I played a role in it. It's not like I'm a complete victim, but I was lucky, because when they attacked me, they just pushed me against a stone, like a brick wall or like a concrete wall in a basement. I, got really cut on my back, but I was able to push them off. And although there was kind of this slight interaction and altercation, no one got hurt and nothing really happened. Mm-hmm. Like it diffused itself pretty quick. But I remember like, "Hey, we got to leave." Like people were throwing bottles, people were, it was an intense scene. And so I remember, me and my friend and my girlfriend at the time, maybe a couple other people, we were like, "Hey, we got to get out of here." I remember someone was driving away, and I slipped on the ice and smacked my head against the ground. It was just an ugly scene.
I didn't know that part.
And I remember at that moment realizing, like, I am never going to hang out with these people again. Mm-hmm. I'll never see them again. I will never come back here. And that next day, I remember reaching out to the football coach and saying, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me. This is who I am. I would really love the opportunity to walk onto the football team and get a tryout." Mm-hmm. And that next Monday, so it happened on Saturday, Sunday I texted him, Monday I went down and got fitted, and I was on the football team. Mm-hmm. And then I had to make the team, which is another piece of the story, but I was like, I will never put myself in, because it could have been really bad. I was like, I'll never put myself in this situation again. I will never surround myself with these people again. I will never act this way. Mm-hmm. It was a clear and concise decision. Mm-hmm. And I have never seen the vast majority of those people. Mm-hmm. Like maybe like 3 or 4 of them who were like just good people who were around, but I have not associated with those people for almost 10 years, 15 years now at this point. Mm-hmm. It was like, this is it. Mm-hmm. I will never do this again. A little bit more. I think, yeah, so it would have been 10 years. A little bit more than 11 years. It's like, nope, never. I have no use for you. Mm. I am different, and I'm going to go after this. I ended up walking on the football team. I made it, and then I got obsessed with bodybuilding. I spent that whole next summer just obsessed with training, going to the gym, starting to work in a supplement store. My friendships changed, and my whole life was different after that. Just a complete shift. And the funny thing is, we'll talk about this in a moment, but after that, I did break up with that girl, but then I found myself dating her again. So when we talk about the slip, we talk about some of those decisions, I kind of started walking back that way.
Yeah.
Until
it was less painful.
Until I made an ultimate decision, like, this is someone who I can't be with. So yeah, that single moment of, I will not drink like this, I will not hang out like this, these people are not in my life anymore, decision. That was it. And that started a whole chain reaction that literally changed the whole course of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful shift. And sorry, I think alluding to what you said at the beginning, you had mentioned that you now create that pain where it doesn't exist so that you can make change. But before you really get into intentionally growing, changing, evolving, and that becomes a core part of your values and who you are, you almost let life happen to you to the point where you realize that nothing can stay the same. You must change your actions. You must change your surroundings. You must change your values. And I think that that's the ultimate example of a compounding of multiple different values that were out of alignment with who you wanted to become. Because for me, it was like, oh, I am not somebody that I want to be, and drinking is not what I want to do. Like drinking and partying. And yours was like drinking, partying, the people I'm surrounding myself with, everything about your circumstances, not choosing not to be on the football team, choosing to play small. Like you were making a bunch of decisions, and that was the lag metric of all those decisions.
Which is I found myself hanging out with a bunch of drug dealers and alcoholics.
Right, and you're like, how did I get in this group of people? This is not. But that was, again, the lag metric. That was the outcome of a lot of unintentional decisions, right? Unintentional towards growth anyway. So that's very good.
Yeah, well, and even at that, I was thinking, as you're saying that, like 2 years prior to that, I'd gotten arrested.
Yeah, so you had plenty of painful experiences beforehand.
Meaning, like, and there was that 2-year buffer where I really wasn't hanging out with these people, and then I started hanging out with them again, and it's like, this is not productive. This isn't where I want to go. So, yeah, it's a compounding effect of multiple decisions, and then that threshold of things just have to change.
Yeah.
And there's things that have to change with my health. There's things that have to change with my circumstances, the people I associate with, and if people don't like the way that I am, that's for them.
I think what's important about what we're sharing here is that it's a change of standard in a moment. To reinforce the new standard is another discussion. But one of the reasons I think it can be really hard to change is because we think that if we make a choice internally to change, that then everything automatically is going to be fixed. Yeah. Right? It's like, okay, well, I've decided today that I feel like getting in shape, or like I've decided today that I don't want to overeat anymore. It's like, but you also have to go through the process of now reinforcing that decision you've made every day, every week, every month, every year, until you no longer have to question it.
These decisions are lifelong decisions.
Meaning?
So if you decide that you're going to get in shape, you are deciding that you are going to make a lifelong decision to be healthy.
If you decided you're going to get in shape, you've actually decided to be in shape.
Yes.
Which is different.
Yes. And so it's like I am deciding to be this kind of person.
Right.
It is a shift in identity. It's a shift in where you're going. And then you're going to make decisions every day that reaffirm or don't. And the wonderful thing is it's a result of state change. So if you're like in that moment, I was in a state where I had so much pain, so much anger. It's like, this is something I have to change. But then from there, it's building an empowering vision of where you're going, right? So it might be pain in the moment, but what does it look like in the future? Because if I need to keep going to pain, I'm going to continue to, it's like you see that with people who, oh my God, my clothes don't fit. They lose 10 pounds and then they gain it back because their clothes start to fit again.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh my God. And then they wait until their clothes don't fit again. Like, oh my God, my clothes don't fit anymore. Pain.
They only have their only bar for change is the low bar.
Yeah, it's like looking at your bank account
Low
and saying
ball.
like, oh my God, I don't have any money. I need to go make money. I don't have any money. It's like, no, you got to reach the point where
You're like,
you keep raising the bar, but once you
Yeah.
decide to change, it's asking, where am I going?
Yeah.
What is the future? And then
Yeah.
like, so the example for me is like, as soon as the pain happened, where am I going? I'm going to go play college football.
Which I thought was a really good pivot because I didn't do anything like that. So it took me many months to actually start changing.
Yeah.
Even though, or actually I would say to see the tangible outcome, like a new body or a new lifestyle.
But but if you really think about it, your pivotal point of change was my contest. But what led to that change once you were at the contest?
What led to the change was I didn't realize that I had a belief that you had to be famous and have a personal trainer and a personal chef in order to be in shape. That was like my full belief system about people who were fit, or be born very thin and just come from a thin family, thin background, high metabolism. Once I saw so many normal people who were not famous, who did not have celebrity trainers or personal chefs on stage with a great body and a great physique, something changed in my brain immediately that said, oh, wait, normal people can do this. I'm a normal person. I could do this too. So it was that initial belief change that told me, oh, this is something that could be in my wheelhouse. I could make a decision to do this. So that's really what changed it. And I was like, I want that.
I love that.
I'm going to do that. So if we're leaning into the change, I do want to hit on how to keep yourself from falling back. Because again, like we said, a lot of people will make a decision, I'm going to get in shape this year, but they don't actually make a decision to be in shape. Or maybe they think they do, but then they end up falling off, slowly sliding back, and then it becomes a spiral back to who they were.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid that?
You have to recognize the states that you're in and the triggers for when you fall back. So if you are empowered when you decide to make a change, you have to condition that state, meaning you have to have a way to anchor in, like, oh, or even if it's just like a visual cue, like I wrote, like when I made the change, I made a vision board. I hung it above my college dorm. It was, pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Brady. It was like something I put up when I decided to play college football. So I had a visual cue for my subconscious and my conscious mind. Right? So it was constantly aligning me. So having some visual cue to remind you of where you're going, having some way to anchor you in, to keep you focused on where you're going, and then recognizing what happens when you decide to fall back to old patterns. Because it's not just that you fall back to old decisions, it's that you fall back to old states. So you have an emotional reaction that happens, and then you have a thought pattern that happens, and those drive your behaviors. So just paying attention, like what happens in my body when I decide to go back to some old foods. Okay, am I bored? Am I stressed? Am I sad? What happens? What am I feeling? What's my body like? And what am I focusing on? What am I thinking about? Because a lot of times when we're deciding to make a change, we have one experience where we start to lean back towards maybe an old pattern, an old habit, an old way of doing things. And then we have a thought and a focus that says, oh, I'm just doing it again. Or, oh, I see, I told you couldn't do it. Right? So we have to just be conscious of what's happening inside of us. We have to have a way to design new cues, new visuals, new direction points. We have to make sure that we know where we're going and continue to reinforce that. And then just pay attention to what happens when you fall back. What happens when you see yourself settle down? Because it's going to happen, right? But you have to understand that you're settling down because of a pattern, right? There's a certain pattern of your body, of your emotions, of your thoughts. It could be a pattern of the way you react to a coworker, or the way you respond to your parents, or the way you respond to your loved one. All those things are just compounding. So the most important thing is just being aware of it.
Yeah.
We have to be aware of it, because the only two things that we can practice is building awareness and taking new actions. That's really the science of achievement, is know what keeps you from doing it and then take a new action when you start to go in that direction. If we can just do that and continue to ingrain it, there's another piece where we can build an intrinsic reward, or even build an extrinsic reward. The intrinsic reward would be, oh, I'm doing it. I'm making progress. I'm making progress. I'm making progress. The extrinsic is finding a way to reward yourself when you see you're making progress. Problem is that a lot of times, I'll take fitness as an example, the extrinsic reward for doing well is to sabotage your progress. I've done really well for a month. Give me pizza.
And I'm going to take a week off.
I'm going to take a week off. It's like, no. It doesn't mean you can't eat those foods. It doesn't mean they're not enjoyable. But you want to be mindful of what your reward system is.
Yep.
Your reward system, find a new reward system. Instead of spending $20 on a pizza, go and buy yourself some new workout shoes.
Yeah, it's
right?
like
do something that's compounding you towards where you want to go.
Yeah, it's like if you use an extreme example, you would never take an alcoholic who's decided that they're no longer going to drink and say, "Oh, you've been sober for 60 days? Let's celebrate and have a cheat day."
Yes.
Where you just get drunk. That you would never do that, right? But we do that with food.
We do that with a lot of things.
We do that with food. We do that with fitness. We do that with a lot of things for sure. But specifically, it's like
food is a good example.
Take that example you just shared and compare it to something that's a more extreme. And you can see that's the same outcome as having cheat days with your food. So it's like the solution is become the type of person who eats well and you don't have to cheat. Become the type of person who eats in a balanced way, and you can have pizza without calling it a cheat, right? Which is what we're going to do tonight at my little brother's birthday.
Are we having pizza?
We're having pizza. But I think that's a good starting point for the dialogue of what not to do. But I think also we tend to your point, building off of what you said, catching yourself, paying attention to what causes you to fall back, and expect that, I won't say expect to fall back, but you can't expect to be perfect just because you made a decision once.
Well, I'm going to cut you off. I'm sorry.
So you can't expect to be perfect just because you made one decision one time to be better. It's seeing it as first a phase of change where you have to keep reinforcing your new decision over and over and over again. Eventually, you'll get through that phase where you have to keep reinforcing it and you have to keep paying attention when you do fall back and you have to keep yourself from spiraling off of those mistakes.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll get through that phase, but people think that is going to be something that they don't ever need to experience because they made the decision. They're like, "Oh, well, now I'm different." It's like, yes, but you still have old belief patterns. You still have old habits. You still have all these things that are in resistance to what you've... Yeah, you still have all of these things that are keeping you from where you want to be. So now you have to go and break and change those things.
The tie down, I would say, is the key is to recognize when you're in the act and then just take a new action. So let's say that I'll use food as an example. It's like if you're someone who's like, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to start eating healthy. And your typical pattern would be when there's pizza there, you have 4 pieces. It's like if you have a piece... Or even if he's like, "Oh, I have a piece and I have a second piece," it's not a failure. You've just started to go back maybe to that old pattern. And the eating isn't the pattern. It's the desire, right? The craving, the urge, the feeling, oh, my God. And who knows? Maybe you have those 2 slices and you're heavier the next day. Let's say that happens. Say and you recognize
there's a lot of different definitions of to fall back.
You know what I mean? So let's say, though, you do feel like you're slipping back. The key is to make the slip back less intense.
Yeah.
It's to reduce the amount of actions that you're taking that you feel like are on that wrong path. I'll use anger, for example. It's a pattern that I've really worked a lot and I've broken a lot. But that sometimes I still get so uptight and I start saying things. And I was telling Steven yesterday on one of our calls talking about breaking some of these patterns. Like, I will still get heated with Lindsey. And we'll be in a passionate discussion. I'll be like, "You know what? This is completely frustrating. And I'm just really upset." But that's totally different than me maybe in the past where I might have allowed that language to be like, "This is BS, and you should have done this way. This is how we should have been doing it. I can't believe that we're I would have allowed that to be
worse, yeah.
A 5-minute soliloquy of my anger because I'm so frustrated with the way things are. So I could still experience the same pattern, right? I could still experience the same habit. It's just like when I'm there, I'm just like, and I change my language.
Yeah.
I change my language. I change what it means. I'm changing the experience, and I'm walking through it in a way that reduces the likelihood of me making things worse. And that's the key. I often tell people it's about lengthening your fuse.
Yeah.
you've gotten to this point where it's almost so hardwired that pizza's there, 3 slices. You say that thing, I get reactive.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I need to lengthen my fuse by becoming mindful, start to see it, and then choose a new action. And the more you do that, that's how the pivotal moments get conditioned to lead you towards where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the 1% changes that really matter.
Yeah.
The 1% change is, you know what? I have 2 slices here, and I ask myself, am I really hungry? It's like, there's nothing wrong with eating a slice in 75%. Yeah, 7/4 is not even. I ate 2 slices and had more than 2 pieces of pizza. How'd that happen? Because that'd be 7/4.
Yeah.
No, it's like I have 1 3/4 pieces of pizza. I choose to, when I'm actually not hungry, I don't need to eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. But we reward ourselves in our brain by saying, "Oh, I finished both pieces." So it's, again, that's another layer of just awareness.
Yeah.
But it's being able to see, okay, what does incremental progress look like once I'm in the pattern, once I'm in the habit, and how can I keep moving in that right direction?
In summary, when you make a decision to change, don't expect that everything about you is going to be changed overnight, but expect that you've made a decision and now you have the opportunity to reinforce that decision. And the hardest part is done, which is the initial pain that causes the change. And once you decide to make that change, expect that you will have slip-ups or moments or challenges, but the whole goal isn't to eradicate those slip-ups altogether. It's to understand that you're going to slip, but you do not have to fall down a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. You can slip and be like, whoa, that hurt. Okay, how did that happen? How did I miss the ice? All right, let's try to walk a little slower next time or redistribute my weight. Okay, and then you get better, make the slip up less intense and less painful. And over time, that's going to become your new normal. You'll be aware and equipped and able to work through those temptations to fall back without actually falling back. So see it as an incremental growth process and re-anchoring to become who you want to be once you've made that decision to make that pivotal change.
Love it.
That's how I would pin it down.
So we hope this is helpful. We hope this gives you some insights into yourself and just allows you to continue to grow as you're looking at this journey. It's a constant process, and we hope that maybe our reflections can illuminate something for you. If you were here checking out the podcast, we want to thank you for being such a big piece of this year for us. This year we officially hit 10,000 yearly downloads, which is really exciting. So a lot of good things happening on the Conquer the Day podcast, and we just appreciate your involvement in it because it's really special.
Yeah, and we would love it if you could leave us a review of what you took away from the podcast this year. So wherever you're listening, if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or even YouTube, we'd love for you to leave a review or a comment and just share what you learned. So what I learned from Conquer the Day this year is, boom, what's your biggest takeaway or what's your biggest growth point? That would mean the whole world to us and would also anchor in whatever lessons you have learned through listening to this podcast.
And to celebrate the new year, we're going to give away a $25 gift card to Amazon for at least one reviewer. So make sure you review us. Apple Podcasts is the best place. That makes it so we can see the reviews. So let us know what you thought of the podcast. What was your big takeaway for the year? And we'll make a selection in the next coming weeks before the next episode, I would say.
Yeah.
On who the winner is. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for letting us be a part of your day. And now go out and conquer it.
Cheers.
Cheers.